Hi, and welcome to the Diablo podcast, your home for Diablo diehards, tryhards, hardcore, and casual alike. I am your host, Xanth, and I am joined by my lovely co-hosts, Ninebulk
Oh, hi.
and Nerdwords.
Hello.
And it's been a little while since we have chatted, but to get down to brass tacks, we got lots to talk about. We got a campfire chat with a lot of good information in tandem with the patch notes, and well, for you, Leviathan, which we will talk about later, it's March 3rd, which means we are 2 days away from the Gauntlet. So let's get into it, gentlemen. We got our campfire chat. Now, I want to skip all the way to like the middle. Um, I think the biggest thing I heard was that we are going to get a PTR for the next season and for itemization. Something we've talked about several times. It was not what I expected when they said they're going to talk about item or they're going to talk about season four. Were you guys as blown away by this as I was?
They had to seem like pretty adamant about not doing PTRs, for Diablo 4. And like I understand because it's a lot of work because it's not just like, oh, let's just spin off a version of the game. It's an entirely different build. It's like working on two builds at the same time. So there is a lot of development time overhead in that aspect. So like I get it, especially as like a live service game, Path of Exile makes a pretty good use with not having PTRs and just kind of like launching with and just we'll do it live. But it's good to see because they are as I'm sure Nerdwords is about to say many times that there could have been some like little minor tiny things that could have been fixed before launch with just a simple PTR.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've talked for many months about how PTR would benefit the game, and I'm not obviously a developer that goes into all those details and stuff, but very happy to see they're bringing it. Now they did quantify that it won't be for every season necessarily. They may it kind of depends on the level or the amount they're adding into a season, which is good to kind of set those expectations so we don't just constantly expect it, but. Either way, I think it's a big win. I mean, just getting the community more involved in the testing process is going to make it a better experience for everyone, developers and community included, hopefully. So, yeah, very excited about it. I don't know that I was surprised. I honestly was kind of shocked it took this long. I know it takes a lot of work, but the Diablo team has proven that they're trying to do the right thing for the game, and it is like clearly the right thing for the game. So, I wasn't really surprised as much, but very excited to see it.
I think I was surprised because my expectation going into this with season four was I thought they would have a few slides of like, hey, here's what an old item looks like. Here's what a season four item's going to look like. Or here
Hmm.
is the PowerPoint slide of the bullet points for itemization for season four or something like that. That was my expectation. So when they were just like, hey, we have plenty to talk about with season four, but what we do want to talk about today is that we're going to have a PTR for the season. That was genuinely surprising because I just had no expectation of that. But it's great to see. Um, but I'm looking at the timetable, guys. Again, it's March 3rd. Gauntlet goes live on the 5th. We know the season ends on the 16th. So my best guess is that we get a PTR in about 2 weeks. Does that timetable line up with anybody else's expectation?
In order to get it in, yeah, that if they go something similar to what the Diablo 3 team had been doing of a 1 or 2 week PTR to get testing and feedback, and then another 2 weeks, for implementation and changes, before that. Yeah, there's not a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean it's they got to get it in quick, right? But um, I think that, I mean we know that we're getting the patch next week. We already got the patch notes, which is awesome. And we should start seeing. I mean, the season force has been in the pipe for a while. They've been talking about it for a while, so hopefully they're internal timelines are lining up with the external expectations as much as possible, because the last thing that we need right now is more divisiveness there, right? So yeah, very important for them to get it done quick and get it out quick. So hopefully that timeline's right. I mean, I'd honestly like to see it sooner, but I don't think it's going to happen sooner than that.
Well, if there's been anything with this season when it comes to predicting when things were going to happen, none of us have any clue, and maybe some people in Blizzard as well, which we will hit on in a moment. Um, but I would just imagine a month, because the PTR, I wouldn't imagine would be up there all the way until the next season releases. So 2, 3 weeks and then cut it off the week before seems logical to me. Um, and I guess we'll just see. Selfishly, I would like it to be a little bit longer. I have a trip I have to go out of the country. It's gonna be right around that time frame, but it's okay. It's okay. I'll consume everybody else's play. Um, well, let's go back to the front. We've got a campfire chat. Um, and more importantly, we'll talk about the gauntlet. We did get the gauntlet date, which we've already alluded to several times here so far. It's going to be on the 5th. How wrong were we all?
Pretty wrong. Pretty
Yeah,
wrong.
I think that's one of those ones where it's like, um, this season could, it's not like the season of the construct, it's season of communications issues. Everything from like the timing of the patch notes and getting the information to us like ahead of time, like they had done with like season 2. Like there was the holidays were involved and that screwed up timetables and everything. But like them going through and promising the gauntlet as like a core feature of the season and then saying it will release shortly after launch, and it's now like 5 weeks after launch. It starts like changing up timetables like severely. Like it this is like the mid-season up this is part of the mid-season update. It's not really like a core feature of the season. Like we didn't start hearing about Abattoir of Zir until after the season had already come out. We didn't hear like anything about Abattoir until afterwards. It's like it was the whole like this is a season of the vampire. Here's like the vampiric powers that you're gonna get and all those other types of stuff. And then once the season came out, hey, this is the next thing to look forward to. We'll do the Abattoir of Zir, and you have more that you can go through and do. Whereas this one was like communicated as if like, oh, it'll be a slight delay. It'll be a slight delay. Oh, it's gonna launch. It's gonna launch. Like a couple weeks after. Oh, that release date is wrong. It'll be a couple weeks. But it'll be shortly after that. And then like a couple weeks go by, and a couple weeks go by. And then now it's the mid-season update as opposed to being like a component of the season.
Yeah, I mean the Abattoir of Zir, was a big surprise. So I think that it's also kind of a good lesson for everyone to know that like there's stuff they're working on that they're not talking about too, that we're just not we're not clued into. So I don't know. There's a lot of I think most excited for what's going to come in season 4. We keep getting little teases, and Joe Pipora kept saying, just check out the next stream, check out the next stream. So very, very, very excited for that. I know there's going to be some big stuff coming there, and we're approaching a year that Diablo 4 has been out now, right? And the state of the game now is much better than what it was. There's still obviously some big issues, and I think itemization is at the core of that. But I'm very excited to see what they're working on, and very excited for the season 4 stuff. But yeah, they've got to get this PTR thing out quickly. And let me dive into this damn gauntlet. I'm so ready for Tuesday, man. Tuesday is going to be great. It's going to be awesome.
We'll come to our expectations and where we expect ourselves to rank down the road. I do like what you said, Dimeball, about miscommunication. We've heard about leaderboards since release, basically, right? Saying, okay, well, we can't do it this season. We can't do it next season, but we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it. And it's almost basically season 4, right? That we're finally going to get a version of a leaderboard. Um,
Yeah.
it feels like a missed opportunity. It feels like something It's not quite as bad as like Diablo 3 PvP, right? Of hey, it's on the box, you're going to be able to do it,
Coming in patch 1.10.
right? Um, Brawling, everybody's going to hate it. Uh, but it feels like a big missed opportunity because at this point, like part of the fun of leaderboards and like chasing a gauntlet and all that stuff is the rush at the start. Everybody's most interested in the season when it launches. And I get like, hey, let's hold it so people can get gear, but we're 6 weeks away from it ending, and that pool of people who are gonna try to push things is gonna be smaller and smaller. So little saddened to see it come in that late. Doesn't mean I'm not gonna enjoy the hell out of it, but could be a little bit faster. Okay. So we're
Yeah.
disappointment about
I think
timelines.
like my biggest thing about it is just like if they had said that it was going to be the mid-season update, I think it would have changed expectations.
Yeah, agreed.
It's mostly about like managing expectations instead of saying like this is a big component of the season and just say that was a mid-season update. There still would be like some disappointment and such, but people would have a better understanding, more information. Just helps manage expectations.
I think that also too and it goes back to what you had said before. When there are multiple different messaging points about when it's happening, first the expectations that comes with the season. Then we had Rod in his interview talking about, I believe it was the 13th. And then we had it on the website saying it was going to be on the 22nd. And now here it is, March, when we actually are seeing it. So that consistently moving the goalposts definitely hurts the general sentiment from the community, but can't change it, can only move forward. Let's talk about classes in a second. I think the one thing that we can all generally experience and understand is vampiric powers. So
Mm.
we've known, just kind of like we had saw with Malignant Hearts, that season two is going to come back in some form. And what they've done is they've handpicked a few of those vampiric powers. They've turned them into aspects, which are, class agnostic, and go out and find them, equip them on builds, have some fun. Fan favorite, Metamorphosis is back uh, in a different form, still there. Um, I'm going to be open. I'm not a huge fan of seeing them come back as aspects. I liked the interplay of the blood system. I would have liked to have seen that come back in some form, but I'll take what I can get. What were your thoughts as you saw the reintegration of vampiric powers?
I mean, in the interest of simplicity, or at least like keeping the game open to people coming in, I think that like that's probably the way they're looking at it. I mean, I don't know obviously, but I think that's how they're looking at it. Like if they add in the powers as they were on top of the other seasonal mechanics and stuff, that could be a little overwhelming. It's a lot of game systems to kind of stack on each other. I don't like the legendary aspect system in general, so I agree with you. But I think at least that's what my thought is for the reasoning behind it to kind of keep. I mean, we're still really early in the game's development cycle. They keep adding layers to it now before they get to like expansions and other things like that. Then it could get really convoluted really quickly, like some other ARPGs out there. And I think they're trying to mitigate that a little bit, and I'm thankful for that. But I agree. Like I didn't want to see them come back as legendary aspects. But it does create like some really interesting choices. I mean, for the longest time, I've had a very specific aspect I was getting on my boots, but now, especially as a sorcerer, like the way that Metamorphosis interacts with teleport, and specifically the teleport enchant and the Oculus, like the kind of meme unique weapon that we got that makes you like teleport randomly. um, Putting Metamorphosis on with that gives you the 9 evades and not random. You can actually go where you want to go. So I wonder if it interacts the same way still, because it's not an evade anymore. It's a Metamorphosis. It's different. So you get the 9 evades still, and you get the crazy stacks to teleport charges, but you don't go in a random place. So I'm excited for that reason. And in a gauntlet, that seems like that would be really powerful. So you might see a lot of sources running Oculus with the Metamorphosis power for speed, which would be really cool. And I think, I mean, you could definitely fit it into like a ball lightning build. But the other powers, I mean, admittedly, like I'm already kind of full up on aspects on my builds, right? Like I don't see any of them necessarily kind of replacing them. Mind you, it depends on how they interact. We know that there's been, bugged interactions and stuff like that. So obviously, if there's something that's crazy powerful, then we'll lean that direction. But again, it's just putting the power in gear, and I really want to see some of that power come to our skill tree a little more, maybe our Paragon board a little more. I mean, you could have added these as Paragon nodes on existing boards or new boards entirely. You could have. There's a lot of ways you could do it. And mind you, again, I'm not a developer, but just trying to think of ways to not add on new systems, but still make it impactful in a way that you could add it to your toolkit rather than replacing something else in your toolkit. But overall, I'm excited to see it come back. I kind of expected it to come back. I'm glad it's not like a unique ring the way they did the season 1 powers, but it is kind of the same. Just a little more freedom to choose where you want to put it.
Yeah, that's like my biggest thought. I'm glad that it's not a unique, and kind of like what Nerdswords was saying is like happy to have Metamorphosis back, and the other ones, none of them are enticing enough to make me consider using any of them over what's already available. To at least like on the Necromancer side. I don't know. Maybe there is a class or combination or something that's out there that will want to use those, but like the Accursed Touch, it's a lucky hit chance proc, and then only 27% at that to like afflict vulnerability. Maybe if you're a class that suffers with getting vulnerability stacks, that could have some impact, but it really is just like Metamorphosis. The Metamorphosis is better balanced. It increases like the cooldown, but it is one of the most painful things of the season has been the lack of Metamorphosis and having to remember all of the sheer amount of crowd control that
The
exists in the
CC
game.
in this game is so cancer.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It's like one of those things. I think that they could help reduce like the amount of crowd control in the game, and then you don't really need Metamorphosis as so much.
Coming back to what you had said in our words, as we were being introduced to the Paragon system, we were told we were going to see new boards. I think you're really right that I felt like that would have been a great way to introduce these powers of like, hey, let's drop a vampiric board. And you can only choose one of the unique nodes, and it's got a different one, much like we're getting our ones here. But then I would have to choose to select that board and to spec into it, and I wouldn't feel as much gear juggling. The power would be somewhere else that isn't just a slot on my inventory. I would like that. I still hate the Paragon system, um, and the aspect system. I hate a lot of systems. I very much love the game. They're just things I don't. I hate I'm gonna go on a rant. I hate having to spend. I'm gonna respec my rogue once we're done with this podcast and prep for the gauntlet. Um, and I'm gonna click 200 times and reset all my boards and reset all my glyphs. And um, I'm not saying we should get like a build saver. We should, but maybe just a different system. Just a
Or
different system
even
entirely.
something like the Hearthstone like deck copy, where you can generate a code that allows you to just copy paste a build, so that way even if the game itself doesn't have the interface with which to save it, that I can save the file myself, share my Paragon loadout via the internet or something like that. I can go and find a guide. I can go on like Pure Diablo forums or something like that, and someone can share their Paragon loadout and say like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing," and I can like load into a preview or even just have it auto spec for me, something like that.
Yeah, I just like flashback to a year ago. Like what happened to build permanence, right? The idea of us being locked into builds, right? It's now we want just freedom to do stuff. And I mean, it just kind of shows that the game is evolving and changing, and the ideologies of them are changing too. But at the same time, like I get it. I switch out if I'm doing Helltide or if I'm doing Nightmare Sigils, whatever I'm doing. I'm switching out a couple pieces of gear. I might move a couple skill points. I definitely move some Paragon points. it would be really nice. I like the idea you brought up about the Paragon board, like a vampire board. But what if they just like did a vampire board that had all of the powers? If you wanted to fully invest, right, then maybe you get like glowing red eyes or some shit and you become like a vampire ascendant. I mean, I don't know. There's just things that they could probably do. Obviously, that's probably a lot more complicated than just adding them in as aspects, though. So, but no, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I'd love to see some more. I would just like to see the Paragon system completely overhauled, but some more boards would at least make it a little different.
Yeah, I think the issue with going through and doing stuff like that is you begin to have like does every season become a Paragon board?
Yeah,
You know,
right,
yeah. Though
right,
I mean, there's like season one being a unique ring, like that's fine. You know, like that. There wasn't a lot going on there. There was so
right.
much in season two that like maybe that could have been a Paragon board. You know,
Yeah,
season three. Don't know. You know, I don't. You know, obviously it's like a construct. Maybe that could go back to being a like a unique item that summons like a little construct or something like that that has like a trigger. It's not up all the time, and obviously, you know, like Genesis and Evernight would be like its like core abilities when it triggers or something like that. I don't know.
yeah. I don't know. There's a lot they could do with it, but I think that I mean, again, it's good to see them bring back old stuff, to bring back
Yeah,
stuff from the other seasons. Um, yeah, I think there's still a little more they could do with it.
it definitely feels better if there's some level of permanence from the new systems that they go through and they add in, you know, but how you go about it is definitely, you know, we're only in the third season. Is the question of how is the best way to go about adding some of these more popular aspects permanently back in, you know, without just like copying pasting it from one season to the next, and then now your inventory screen has 15 different tabs for 15 different little skill trees that you're going through
Right.
and slotting. It's like, oh no, this is the construct tab. I need to go back into the vampiric power tab.
Yeah. Well, and then also too, I mean, like so many of those powers are so powerful, like with the construct, with the season of blood, with I mean the malignant season, even the first season. So they've also got to find ways to put them in so that like that power doesn't continuously stack,
Yeah.
because then then we're in Diablo, which we're already kind of in Diablo 3 numbers of ridiculousness, but it'd be even worse, So I don't know. It's a slippery slope and very tricky. So I'm glad I'm not the one who has
Mhm.
to mess with it for sure.
I don't hate the idea of a Paragon board each season, though, of a way to
I
access
see.
that
I
power.
think,
Of like you're juggling it. You only have
yeah,
you only have 250 points to spend, guys,
right.
and they can't all go into that. Well, they can
Well,
go
I
into
can
that
I
tell you
one
as
think
a
I
board.
think
sorcerer, it
one of
probably
the
would for me. So
yeah, I think one of the problems is that you have to make, you know, the idea is that you would make the Paragon board have enough power that would make you want to drop one of your class
yeah,
core Paragon boards in order to use. And if every one of those is like that, how many seasons away are you from only using seasonal Paragon boards and not having any class boards?
yeah. But see, I
Because
also like the
each one has to be tempting enough to want to use, unless they're like season two is the power, season three it becomes a Paragon board, and then season four we nerf it so that way you use the season three Paragon board type thing.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's that. Well, I also like I just like the idea of like the Paragon board specifically, of like, if you put enough points in it, you get like a vampire subclass almost, like it was
Yeah.
mostly for those specific powers, because like, we're just not vampires now. And that's pretty weird considering what we went through in season 2.
And I want to
Um
know why.
right, like why aren't we vampires anymore? Because we definitely are, unless like everything happening in season stuff is non-canon, which is probably the case. But they are putting some lore in bits in these two, so it'd be nice to. I need someone to come out and just tell me if I'm still a vampire or not. Okay, so Blizzard, if you're listening, someone just tell me if I'm a vampire or not.
We don't know.
Can I eat
Um,
garlic?
was it stated that the vampires of Sanctuary can't eat garlic?
No, but
No.
we draw assumptions. Okay.
Okay, I'm just saying it feels a little racist. Um, and you're just making assumptions about a whole group of people right there.
So that's terrible,
Uh,
terrible.
Vampire racism aside, uh, it'll be interesting to see what the sensual companion turns into. because that doesn't have a clear item analogy. It doesn't have a clear aspect. Like all of
Yeah.
the vampiric powers definitely did. Um, I don't know what to make of it. The ruins themselves, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. I would love those just on my skill tree to augment skills. If that's their place, that would be so cool because then that's more of choice happening in how I can make my build. As a sub note, right?
Yeah.
Last week, we saw the release of another ARPG. Last Epoch came out, and good on them. Good on them for pumping out a game. They were a victim of their own success. Their servers couldn't handle how many people wanted to play it. Which means there's an audience out there for ARPGs. Who'd have thought? Uh, one of the things that I think they've done really well is their skill system. There are a bunch of skills. You have your class, you have subclasses, and then every skill has a tree, and you can branch it out how you feel and kind of make it your own. It doesn't say, it's not to say that there aren't obviously meta builds. Uh, not every build is going to be viable, but I will say I've had more enjoyment out of like making those trees work than out of the D4 skill tree, right? Because I'm kind of pushed in a direction there, whereas I get more of the choice in Last Epoch. I've still played way more Diablo 4 since Last Epoch came out because there's something about D4 that keeps me going. But if D4 can grab that, it's lights out.
Yeah, I mean, agreed. Agreed. It is good to see that, I mean, we've definitely never had server issues as Blizzard fans for sure. Every launch ever has always been super smooth. Definitely no errors coded in the 30 range, nothing like that. So
Nope.
it's really good to
None.
see that it's not just Diablo, for sure. And yeah, a bunch of my friends have been jumping in and playing it for sure too. I played it a while back. I haven't decided if I'm going to jump in just yet or not. I'm a little busy with other stuff right now. So
That's my problem. I have it installed,
yeah,
and
I
that's
do
about
too.
as far as I've gotten.
Yeah, honestly, like I just has nothing to do with what we're talking about at all, but I can't stop playing Baldur's Gate again. So I'm like deep into a campaign on Baldur's Gate for like the 6th time since it came out. So yeah, just doing that again.
I've got some IRL stuff going on, so I'm like 2 hours into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and it's
Hmm.
killing my soul.
Yeah.
Um,
You're like, I need
uh,
it. I need it.
I'm recording this podcast instead of using these few hours in order to play that game.
Yeah.
That's fair. I get that. Also, I do think it's hard to juggle multiple ARPGs. Like playing one,
Sure.
building characters, grinding towards stuff. It's time consuming, but it's not too much. But then you put in two, or like three, it's a lot. Um, it's a lot easier. Like, you can have your palate cleanser game. You can go and play a Final Fantasy. You can play a Baldur's Gate, which doesn't have as much of the grind. Not to say that Final Fantasy doesn't have its grind, um, but it's a different kind of thing. But yeah, multiple ARPGs is definitely tough. But if you haven't checked out Last Epoch, give it a shot. You might like it. I thought it was pretty fun. I'm still slowly making my way because, again, I'm playing way more D4 still. Okay, so we hear about vampiric powers. We also hear about classes. Um, and we can chat a little bit about what our respected classes saw, but I think the biggest takeaway for me, and maybe it's not surprising, but I guess I was kind of surprised by it, was that nothing's going to be done to the barbarian. Thoughts?
I mean,
Uh,
makes sense. Makes
yeah,
sense.
pretty much. Ball lightning, existed for the entirety of season 2 on a bug, like not even like a tuning issue or anything like that. It was literally just a bug, and they let people go through, have their fun, and it's like, Yeah, it continues to go through that. We are getting leaderboards, but it's like it's per class, type thing. I'm sure someone out there is going to put together a data aggregation that will have the rankings of all the classes together, and Barbarian is just going to absolutely destroy everybody else. But yeah.
I don't know.
Uh,
I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, you're not wrong. Like Barb's going to perform incredibly well, but I think that Sork and Druid can keep up. I really do, I'm kind of glad to hear they're not doing the nerfs. Like I've got a level 100 Barb myself, and I'm doing the charge build. Now I'm not doing like the crazy powerful like
Bias,
one shot
bias.
build. Say what now?
Oh, nothing. Just talking about your bias.
Okay. Yeah. But I have most of my time in my Sork butthole. But no, it's been fun. But it's not unkillable. It's not unstoppable. Like it's very strong. But like my Sork clears faster. I can clear much quicker on my Sork. Now the Barb can clear bosses much faster. But my Sork can clear a whole dungeon or vault or Helltide like mad fast. So it depends on what you need it for. And right now, there's not really. I mean, if Abattoir existed, then it'd be a little more of a concern that it was imbalanced. But with it being speed focused, I mean, I feel like it makes it at least a little more amenable for everyone, all the classes to like dive in and play around with it, except for right now, Necromancers. But obviously, there's some big changes coming there, which looks awesome. And honestly, I'm probably going to roll a Necromancer next season because of it. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely happy with the necromancer changes. They finally are starting to address the fact that it is not fun being like the slowest class in the entire game with no movement skills whatsoever. So even just the couple of minor move speed increases that they're going through and adding, it's nice. Thanks. More. Thank you. Um, yeah, Shadow's been my favorite like necromancer build, and they're going through and they're buffing. They're still trying to like find that balance point of trying to bring corpse explosion in so everybody was just going around and using it for lucky hit chance procs, all those type of stuff. Damage scaled really well, and so they're now kind of like giving that Shadow a little bit of that boost back up with some buffs to Sever, Blight, and everything like that. So that'll be cool. I'm spec Bone Spear right now. We'll see if I have the time to go through and actually like farm up all the aspects and switch over back to Sever for the Gauntlet, but we'll see. And then I get the promise of minion changes in season 4, so I would love to be able to actually go back and play a minion build. I don't think that the changes that they have set up for minions, like they're increasing like the base damage, they're increasing like the base health, but it's honestly it's the scaling. It's the minions scale so poorly that it really doesn't matter. Like you could increase their base damage by 100% and they still won't keep up. The only reason that you're clearing anything is because of Mendelin procs and such. I really would like to see if they do any changes whatsoever, for the Necromancer minions going into season 4, it is to move it away from a lucky hit chance, just a lucky hit proc build where your minions do absolutely nothing. You proc Mendelin, and then everything on the screen dies, and that's just the way that the class plays. I would love to see minions be a threat in and of themselves and not tied to a singular unique.
Question for
Yeah.
you. So, Nineball, with the druid, a few of the things, pet damage goes up. Great. Poison creeper, ravens, like hey, they're non-existent. Wolves are the only pet that a druid has that's consistent. And the bigger critique about the reworked unique and stuff like that is you can add 10 levels to it. It does not matter because the wolves are going to get killed in a tier 90 plus. Is that the same thing for necromancer minions? Like, do they not last in higher level nightmare dungeons?
Uh, they have some survivability, because they baked in a lot of like the survivability like core into like the necromancer minions, so it's not as big of a skill point sink in order to actually like keep them alive. But they die quite a bit, especially on bosses and things like that.
Okay.
But you're just having to build the build also like requires like corpse generation, which is probably one of the biggest things that's been holding back minions in this one. Was there was a bug that was preventing reapers from generating corpses, which is like the majority of where you're going through and getting the corpses to then resurrect the skeletons back like during a boss fight. And so that will hopefully relieve like some of those issues. But it's less about their survivability and more about the actual damage that they deal. Because it's like you'll have a Mindolin proc for like 15 million damage, and then like the Reaper does this big wind up attack where it takes like a second to do the animation and it hits for like 10,000. It's like what's the point?
Hmm. Well, here's to hoping. Honestly, so I would like to see the Barbarian tuned down. It doesn't have to happen this
Mhm.
season, but I think one of my favorite experiences so far this season was going in trying to get on my first druid, trying to get a crone staff from Varjan at like level 72, having to pay attention to the mechanics of the fight, knowing that there was a reward I wanted eventually that I didn't get until like the end of, I don't know, like the 15th run. That was thrilling. It was a little bit slower. I didn't feel like it was too hard, but I knew I was going to get punished if I wasn't paying attention. And I think what we're seeing, and Nerdwords, you alluded to it before, is like this Diablo 3 kind of rising, um, where you have barbarians just eclipsing content where if you can kill world bosses in a second, you can kill Duriel, you can kill like everything in just a matter of moments, then like what's the point of even trying to do anything? Now, comparison is the thief of joy, right? I'm not saying that I want my druid to be able to do that. I want no class to be able to do that. I want things to matter, to be a little bit more difficult. Uh, I'm just curious how they can do that with the barbarian because it's been 3 seasons where the barbarian has been amazing, and it doesn't seem like they know what to do to fix it.
Well, I'm sure it's not an easy fix. I mean, if you think about it, like the flavor of Hoda is to like build up a bunch of power and just unload a big one shot. Um, how do you give them that and make it not one shot all this content, but still feel like something you want to go do? So I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. I will say that like a lot of the fun of the early part of the season for me was killed from playing with friends that were playing barbs. I had more fun playing by myself and eventually just kind of wandered off by myself. Um, because like you're right, like during a lot of the boss ladder fights as you're leveling up in the 60s, 70s, 80s is a lot more fun and challenging and actually feels like a fight. And once you get fully geared, then they're really, super easy to take down. Then you're just grinding for the sake of grinding. But at that point, you're trying to get a very intentional upgrade that will help your build big time. And I think that's awesome. I think that's really good. And I think that like having a barb that just one shots it makes it just boring, just so boring. And like doing Duriel rotations and having a barb in the group, just one shotting Duriel is just so boring. Mind you, it's faster, it's more efficient for sure. There's no denying that. But it's just okay. Run to the thing. Okay, turn everything in. Okay, cool. The ad spawn. Okay, cool. Now one shot Duriel. All right, loot. All right, do it again. And you do that for hours. You're not even playing the game. You're just pushing a button on the slot machine and just hoping for the best, which is the point of the game. But there's also like the actual gameplay and the fun of like killing stuff yourself. So I don't know. It's a hard thing to answer for the barb. The barb's been pretty consistently good at boss killing since the jump, and I don't know how they're going to change that. I mean, one, they've got more item slots than everybody else. That's a big thing. Two, they can dip into just about every like statistical affix that exists in the game. I mean, whether it's fortify or overpower or vulnerability or crit or whatever, like they can really make anything work. They can make overpower work. They can make death blow work. They can make charge work. I mean, like they're in a pretty good spot. I don't know. It's tough. I mean, without nerfing Barb significantly, it's going to make it tough, and I don't know how they can pull it off.
I don't know if it's something that is going to be like a season to season update, or if they really have to like go through and take a look at it like with the expansion to kind of do like a broader reset of everything. But I think it is definitely like damage is just too high across the board. Like, I would say like even, bad builds, are still like the damage is still like way too high. Probably you could nerf like a lot of things because it like it feels like when you're going through, especially like in like Avatar of Zir, when we're pushing above like the Nightmare Dungeon 100, like the enemy's damage was just too high, and so you just went back to Diablo 3 like glass cannons. If it was just something where we did like a tenth of the damage that we do now, reduce the mob damage and reduce the mob health, so that way it's a little bit, might be a little bit more of a grind, but it just has a little bit more weight to the combat because I feel as if a lot of it's like everybody everybody wants the game. Uh, they want to complete stuff fast. They want to be efficient. They want to go as fast as they possibly can. But I feel as if that's one of those ones where it's like we race to the finish line faster, and so then we get bored faster.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more there to increase that gameplay loop.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens to the barbarian kind of going forward. Like you said in our words, it hasn't happened yet. It seems to be a tricky class to kind of pin down
Uh,
to what it should be able to do.
as I was saying in my my season prediction stuff, you can always bet on Barb.
Yeah.
Yeah. True.
Well, you were right, and I said necromancer, so I was clearly wrong. Um, but I really, really hope that people don't look to the barb and say like that's what I want every class to do, because I just don't. I was in a world boss this morning, and there wasn't a barbarian around. It took us 5 minutes, and that felt okay. Like I had to pay attention to what was on the ground. I had to move my character. I felt like I was playing a part. And I don't know, like I had said before, comparison is the thief of joy, and that's true. But like it is discouraging to go into those group events, right? This is a world boss, this is a legion. And it's like, well, my job is to stand here and watch you play the game that I'm also playing. And that just doesn't feel as good. Whereas I had more fun in that horrible world boss by most comparisons. 5 minutes, I could have been doing so much. I could have done like 10 Durials at that point. But it was fun. It was enjoyable. And I'm hoping that we can get back to that. Or I'll just, only play at weird hours and be okay. So, class balance aside, we've got the measuring stick for class now. On the fifth, we can measure our capabilities against one another and see how well we do in the gauntlet. We were given three flavors of gauntlet. We saw a sorcerer, we saw a necromancer, and we saw our good buddy Leviathan on the barbarian, who put up the highest score of the dev team.
Is it because barbarians are broken or Leviathan's hands need to be nerfed?
I think a combination of both of those things.
I feel like um, if it was really good, he would have hit 300,000 and not a middling 297. If we wanted to be impressed, like, you know, 300,000 is way better. And I said that to him personally. That was the first thing I said. I was like, that was pathetic. Not even 300,000. Um, but we did get a flavor of the gauntlet. We have a static arena that is always laid out the exact same. Every class is going to go in and get the exact same experience, and the goal is to put up the highest score. Um, I'm kind of excited for this. It is set at what is the equivalent of a tier 70 dungeon. So that is, I think, far more attainable for most, both hardcore and softcore, right? Um, a tier 70 is less dangerous for me on hardcore than a tier 100, to say the least. So I'm excited from that perspective is how approachable that is. And then, to see the clear divide from those who are very comfortable in a tier 100 to those who are just scraping like the bottom of a tier 70 to see how they score and what that gap kind of looks like. It's honestly the only way I'm going to find out if I'm any good at this game, I think. Like Xanth, you've put in how many hours? And well, it's not that good. Sorry, bud. Here's your participation trophy. I'm excited for it. What did you guys think as you were watching the devs play through? And before that, shout out to Macro and Anna, who I thought did an amazing job, kind of giving commentary on the cuff. Like giving commentary on something as it's happening is hard. Giving commentary on something that you don't know beforehand is harder. Where like I've never played a gauntlet before. That would be equivalent to, me having to give cricket commentary. I know it exists. I understand there's a wicket and a bat. That would be the extent of it. Like, oh, looks like that guy's gonna try to hit the wicket, and that would be my commentary I could give. For them to be able to bounce off of each other and be able to actually give some in-depth things just right off the fly, that was great. So great job, you two. Okay, I'm talking too much. What did you guys think as we got to peek into the gauntlet?
So my original the idea that I had in my head was that it was going to be something like a challenge drift with
Yep.
the actual like dungeon laid out, and that it would be kind of like figuring out what's the fastest way that I'm going to run this. What path do I take? What is my pylon usage going to look like and such? And it's just going to be like the fastest to the end, in order to go through and post the highest score. The way that they did it, like, surprised me because it broke my expectation. It was like, yeah, well, yeah, that's a lot better. I like it having, like kind of like it's like a set map, but then having the specific pylons that will then refresh all of the mobs, in the dungeon, and then having to plan out not just one route but multiple routes, and how when you activate the pylons, in order to go through like combat kill bosses and things like that, makes it far more engaging. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm super excited about it for sure. It looks awesome. I love the difficulty being where it's at too. I think that like the abattoir was fun for its own way, but no one loves getting one shot. And the higher you go up in difficulty, the more likely you are to get one shot. So that just creates like this frustrating like play loop. Whereas this, like if you die in this, like you just need to tweak some gear a little bit, right? Like you should be able to be very, very tanky on pretty much any character going into a 70. 70 should not be too challenging for anyone to max their resists and to, hit the armor cap and things like that too. So I think that's really good. I like it being built around speed more than anything, and really more efficiency than anything, because that is the game of Diablo, right? It's not about the hardest content. This isn't Dark Souls. It's about efficiency. Diablo players, the best Diablo players, are the most efficient players. Speedrunners, right? People that can really blast and get up there super quick. So I like to see this kind of test that, and I'm excited to see how it'll evolve over time. This is obviously the first iteration of it, and I'm going to jump in and see how I can do with it for sure. But like I've kind of been prepping, because we saw like a little bit of a teaser before about this, and it looked like they were monster level 124. So the speculation was it was going to be Nightmare tier 70, and we were right, which is awesome. So that's really good to hear, because I've got a really tasty little charge bolt build that I've been trying to think up for this thing that I'm excited about. So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm hoping that the leaderboard does allow us to peek in on the builds of players because I want to steal everyone's good builds. I want
It'll show
to,
skills. It won't show gear, I think.
it won't give the full Paragon layout.
No, it'll just show the skills they're using.
See, that would be awesome, right? Like knowing skills because as we kind of alluded to before, are limited, right? If I could see their full Paragon board, where do they put their points? What glyphs have they leveled? That would be better, right? I want to take that information and use it, which is actually a nice little segue. We'll come back to this conversation, but if you have not visited Pure Diablo in the past week or two, there's been a major site overhaul. It is looking crisp, it is looking clean, and it also is including a build calculator and a build guide creator. So if you are so inclined and confident perhaps in your gauntlet build, you could put it on the site and share it if there is not that functionality in game. Maybe you can boast or help somebody else get to their score. Um, if I do well, this is my promise to the viewer. I'll put my build on the site. I will go through the trouble of clicking 200 plus Paragon points to share my build with you. In fact, Rush, our lovely editor and site owner, had asked me several times to test and demo this before the site. And I got halfway through a Paragon board every time and said I would come back to it later. So I did not. Uh, but if I do well, I will put it on the site. It'll be Xanth's Rogue build, Xanth's uh, Druid build, whatever one happens to be successful. Um, and I'll share that with you. But I would like to steal other people's ideas. So go to Pure Diablo, share your builds, and let's get a massive collection of builds going there. Okay, back to it. That was like a great segue, great little ad for Pure Diablo. That's what we do. I lacking that feature to like fully see how that they have spec'd is a bit of a bummer, but maybe that's a season four thing. Maybe that's a way that they can flesh it out a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll have to kind of see how it plays out for sure. Very curious on a lot with season 4. So there's a lot hinging on what's going to happen in season 4. Not to say that there's pressure necessarily, but I feel pressure. I'm anxious about what's going to happen in season 4. So, and I mean, we're really like you talked about. We're coming up really close to that time frame, right? So we should be hearing more about that. I mean, we know we've got the patch this week. Is the campfire chat this week as well, or is it next week? We don't know
No
yet.
date.
We don't have a
Yeah.
date yet. Okay. I imagine then it's not going to be this week. But who knows? We'll see.
Probably not, especially with like the launch of the
Gauntlet.
patch, the Gauntlet mid-season
Yeah.
update and stuff like that. Probably
Usually
would
they,
be maybe at the soonest the week after that.
yeah, usually they tell us like a week out. They're like, hey, we're gonna have a campfire chat next week,
Right.
and we'll talk about some stuff. So yeah, I could see. We did also in tandem with that here that the PTR is only for PC. So anybody
Yeah.
who's strictly PlayStation or Xbox, not going to work. Um, I wonder if then we know Diablo 4 goes to Game Pass on March 28th. So get the PTR up and running before Game Pass. So there is no confusion from people who just get it that they don't get the PTR. I'm just kind of thinking out loud at this point. Um, I digress. But let's spend a little time here. Oh, well, first, what are you taking to the gauntlet? What are you gonna push the most with? Everybody's got multiple classes at this point. In other words, what are you going to push the gauntlet on?
I mean, definitely the sorceress. I don't think that's even a question. I definitely have a barb. I would definitely have a charge barb just so that I can prove to my barb friends that I'm better than them at their own class. I'm definitely doing that. I'm gonna be that petty. But no, I've actually got like kind of like a self cooked build that I'm really want to try with the Sork. Yeah, I'm really excited. I've been playing it for a few weeks now, and I'm very very excited about it. I don't know how it compares to like Ball Lightning. It's definitely adjacent to Ball Lightning. Like it shares a lot of similar like ideologies and stuff, but it's not the same build and it doesn't use Ball Lightning at all. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. But you know, if I'm struggling behind and I'm realizing it's because I'm not running Ball Lightning, that at some point in the next week or two, I will probably end up switching to Ball Lightning. It really just kind of depends. But right now I've got a self-cooked build I want to try first and see how that goes. So
People play more than Necromancer?
odd.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
heard.
My
Uh,
segment's short. It's probably Necromancer and probably just Bone Spear because I don't know if I'll actually be between like IRL obligations and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I don't know how much I'll actually be able to devote to changing to any other build at the moment.
it's fair. Um, at the moment for Tuesday, I'm going rogue because my druid
Okay.
died.
Rip.
Um, my druid died on, I think it was last Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere in
You
there.
could be 100 again right now. What are you doing?
I know. That's what I'm
Jeez.
foregoing uh pushing. I'll push a little bit tonight, but I don't think I'm gonna hit 100 by Tuesday. So I'm gonna start with the rogue. I'm gonna get the druid back there. Um, and I'll maybe have enough time to push in uh before the week is out, but we will we'll see. We'll see how fast I can go. That's the danger of like trying to rush back with a hardcore character is you get too greedy, you push too hard, and then you die at 80. You die at 85 or something like that. I don't need that. Also, side note, Diablo 4 is way too alt unfriendly. I have a stash filled with ancestral uniques. And what's the level requirement to use ancestral uniques?
80. Get good.
70?
80.
80.
What's
If you
the
found it
level?
over level 80.
What's the level to get into tier 4?
60.
Yeah,
Well, really, you could do it at level. I mean, you could really do it as long as you've cleared your first capstone. You could go do it. You
right.
do it any level, but you shouldn't probably do it before level like 55 or 60.
Yeah.
Especially
Um,
as hardcore.
yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
I did it on my Sork at 55, but you know, on hardcore.
I'm so good. Um,
No, no, it's just really easy on a Sork because Sork's busted leveling up. So
right. Um, but yeah, so I have a stash full of great gear just staring me in the face. So I'm it's like, it's so
it's
close.
inspiration. It's good. See, I think that's a good thing. I mean, well, maybe not. I don't know for hardcore. I think it's a good thing to not be able to like fully gear out your ult. Like you should maybe some gear. Okay, sure, but like having like ancestral 925 pieces you can equip at like level 40 or something would be stupid. Like it'd be
No,
so
but
stupid.
I'm thinking of like, Diablo 2. I could toss on a couple of low-level uniques that were
Yeah.
really just leveling uniques.
Yep.
There's no leveling gear in
Right.
Diablo 4,
That's the real problem.
and I
Yes.
think that's what makes the season or like making another character so much harder because I know like Path of Exile is pretty alt friendly because you have just a few pieces of really good gear that you can slap on and everything goes a little bit faster. That makes it less of a chore, and I'm actually kind of excited when I do it because it's like, oh, I've already got this figured out, and then maybe I'll find something cool along the way, as opposed to, all right, let's pop those 12 points in my skill tree and let's see what happens. It's gonna be a slog. Eventually I'll hit 80 and it's gonna be great because I've got all the gear there. But for right now, maybe I saved what, two sacreds? Um, and that's it. That's like I think all I had was like 2 sacred pieces. Um, because I got cocky and I didn't save and hoard everything like a squirrel for winter. I didn't learn that lesson, and that's okay. But
You always
maybe
keep
someday.
backup aspects, dude. Always keep backup ones, man.
It's not the
Just in case. I don't even play
it's
hardcore, and I do that.
it's not the aspects. Like I've got the aspects, right?
Okay.
It's gear. It's like especially with Druid, there's so many build enabling uniques. Like so to lack those makes leveling a little bit harder. Really, it's
Yeah.
you just
The
need
real
something.
trick is
Oh,
just don't die. Like just don't die, and you don't have
I
that
was
problem.
doing. I've only died once this season.
This
Once
season. Yep. Yep.
this season.
Yeah.
this
This
season.
season.
See,
That's the only
I think
season that
this.
matters.
So the solution to this obviously is you just have to level up one character through the campaign, brick them in Act 4, so that way you can just use the Hellforge hammer since it has no level requirement. Just
Yeah.
use
That's it.
that for leveling. Yeah.
There you go.
I miss that. I miss that. Uh, we should bring it back. Bring it back. Um, okay. So we're getting into speculation anyway. Uh, we're gonna get a PTR soon. We're gonna get an itemization rework. Let's go ahead. Let's go past the itemization rework. We've been dancing around it all night. Does a skill tree and Paragon rework happen after itemization? Or does it not
After.
happen at all?
After.
So does it
Did you say
happen or
after?
does it not happen at all?
Nightball, you want to go first on this one? I don't.
Sure. I mean, you know, that would be one of the ones where I'm does the Paragon system work? Yes. Is it a success? It's not something to be excited about, and I think that there's definitely things that they could improve. I would love to see it, but a system wide change like that, I wouldn't expect it before like the expansion. That would be like something I would expect like with an expansion to like massively change the game. Because even for like take your base player, the average player doesn't get to 100, kind of just plays through the seasonal storyline, maybe gets to world tier 4 and stops playing. You go through and you make massive itemization changes. As long as the changes are done in the right direction, it's something that they can understand. If you reduce the number of affixes and you no longer have damage on Tuesdays and you just have like flat damage or bonuses to skills and stuff like that, your average player can still understand that. But the amount of time that it's taken to devote in order to learn and comprehend like the Paragon system, to just do that and then throw like a season on top of it and such without having some sort of like big bells and whistles for that expectation point of coming into an expansion. Like, hey, it's a brand new expansion. We're doing some big radical changes and we're changing up the Paragon system. Like that will help make sense. You also will be introducing story elements to maybe help push people along at a lower difficulty level so they don't feel as forced to grind super fast in the season and such. That slows everything down and gives them time to go through and relearn it. So yeah, that'd be something that I think that would probably be more relegated to a like expansion level content to change something that big in the game. But I definitely see that it's something uh, that for the long term health of the game, I think would probably be much beneficial to rework and make it more impactful. Like it's because it depends on your class. Because like some classes, like the Paragon board is like extremely impactful with how you go through and string glyphs or the legendary nodes together and such. Others not so much, but it's all just like passive bonuses. You're not really changing up like your play style, all that much, with a few exceptions. And so I'd like to see something that's just more engaging instead of just 100 nodes of, plus damage, and then like 50 nodes of plus survivability, and then one that makes it so that way I can like corpse dance to flip back and forth between a damage bonus or a defensive bonus. I'd like more of the corpse dancing and less of just plus damage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on record about how I feel about that whole Paragon system, so I'm not going to go on any sort of rant about it. But I agree completely. I have no notes, and I agree with the expansion piece as well too. I would be incredibly shocked if we see anything like that prior to the expansion release. I might even be shocked if I saw that with the expansion release. I'd love to see it. I would love to see a rework, but you're talking like they've already really changed pretty drastically the Nightmare Dungeon system, from what it was at launch to now. They've drastically changed damage buckets and how they work from what it was to launch till now. They're changing itemization, hopefully in a big way. We'll find out soon. I mean, they changed that. It's Diablo 5 at this point, right? like we just got a whole new game, right? Like you started renovating your bathroom, and 3 years later, your whole house is new. So I don't know. I would love to see it. I definitely would love to see it. I'm a big proponent for more power being on the skill tree and less power being on gear. I think that could even make it easier for them to balance individual classes that way, because then you can make adjustments to a class's skill tree rather than adjusting gear that affects more than one class. There's just a lot of upside there. I'm sure there's downsides too, that I'm not fully aware of, but yeah, I would love to see it, but I don't think we'll see it before the expansion.
Well, we will see. It's just not something that I've seen kind of coming up as itemization is now coming to the forefront. Uh, then the next question is, okay, you fix the items, but my skills aren't as intriguing. My Paragon system isn't as great. So it seems like
Well,
a
and
logical direction to
I
go.
no, I think you bring up a pretty fair point. Is just it's like there's a million questions. There's a million things on the to-do list for fixes, and it's as soon as you fix one, the next question's already lined up.
Yep.
yeah, there's so many questions. Until we see what season 4's got to bring, it's hard to know what the next questions are going to be too.
That's fair.
That's going to be really tricky. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited for the Gauntlet. I'm really excited to jump into this thing on Tuesday. Hopefully it keeps me engaged for the last few weeks of the season, because I mean, like I stopped playing last week because I was kind of just waiting on the Gauntlet, and I've honestly got both my characters super geared at this point for pretty much any content I want to do. I've got multiple like backup sets of gear, and I've been lost in Baldur's Gate, so this will pull me back in and hopefully compete a little bit on the leaderboard. We'll see what we can do, but really excited for season 4.
Well, I think all of us here will wish everybody who's listening a good luck in the Gauntlet. I would love to see if somebody out there gets one of those fancy art pieces for winning the whole damn thing. So, good luck, and we'll close it out as we always do with moo, moo, moo.
Ooh.
Moo.